Of all things, I liked books best. Is nature a giant cat? If so, who strokes its back? Each day we go to our work in the hope of discovering. You may live to see man-made horrors beyond your comprehension. If Mr. Edison had thought smarter, he wouldn't sweat as much. Originality thrives in seclusion free of outside influences. We all make mistakes, and it is better to make them before we begin. All matter comes from a primary substance, the luminiferous ether. Our senses enable us to perceive only a minute portion of the outside world. I am equally proud of my Serbian origin and my Croatian fatherland. The beauty and the scent of roses can be used as a medicine, and the sun rays as a food. Our entire biological system, the brain, and the earth itself work on the same frequencies. No free energy device will ever be allowed to reach the market. The future will show whether my foresight is as accurate now as it has proved heretofore. To know each other, we must reach beyond the sphere of our sense perceptions. Merciless is the law of nature, and rapidly and irresistibly we are drawn to our doom. Be alone, that is the secret of invention. Be alone, that is when ideas are born. A new idea must not be judged by its immediate results. The present is theirs, the future, for which I really worked, is mine. Inventors don't have time for married life. It's not the love you make, it's the love you give. Inventors don't have time for married life. Crystals are living beings at the beginning of creation. Nature may reach the same result in many ways. Great moments are born great opportunity. Sometimes I feel that by not marrying, I made too great a sacrifice to my work. Marconi is a good fellow, let him continue. He is using 17 of my patents. One's salvation could only be brought about through his own efforts. Our senses enable us to perceive only a minute portion of the outside world. Woman will ignore precedent and startle civilization with their progress. I have harnessed the cosmic rays and caused them to operate a motive device. A new idea must not be judged by its immediate results. The hard work of the future will be pushing buttons. These are only new devices for putting the weak at the mercy of the strong. I have harnessed the cosmic rays and caused them to operate a motive device. The last 29 days of the month are the toughest. The idea came like a flash of lightning, and in an instant the truth was revealed. Is nature a giant cat? If so, who strokes its back? I don't care that they stole my idea. I care that they don't have any of their own. Of all things, I liked books the best. If Mr. Edison had thought smarter, he wouldn't sweat as much. We should effect a radical reform in the character of the food. Universal peace is a beautiful dream, but not at once realizable. Miss, never trust a Jew. Now the soft-voiced gentle woman of my reverent worship has all but vanished. If your hate could be turned into electricity, it would light up the whole world. I do not think you can name many great inventions that have been made by married men. One must be sane to think clearly, but one can think deeply and be quite insane. I don't care that they stole my idea. I care that they don't have any of their own. Women will ignore precedent and startle civilization with their progress. What one man calls God, another calls the laws of physics. Antisocial behavior is a trait of intelligence in a world full of conformists. These are only new devices for putting the weak at the mercy of the strong. All peoples everywhere should have free energy sources. Crystals are living beings at the beginning of creation. One has to be sane to think clearly, but one can think deeply and be quite insane. A new idea must not be judged by its immediate results. Great moments are born great opportunity. The last 29 days of the month are the toughest. Of all things, I liked books best. We are all one, only egos, beliefs, and fears separate us. The progressive development of man is vitally dependent on invention. Every living being is an engine geared to the wheel work of the universe. As I review the events of my past life, I realize how subtle are the influences that shape our destinies. The harness of waterfalls is the most economical method known for drawing energy from the sun. Though free to think and act, we are held together, like the stars in the firmament, with ticks inseparable. These ticks cannot be seen, but we can feel them. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. It will soon be possible to transmit wireless messages around the world so simply that any individual can carry and operate his own apparatus. I could only achieve success in my life through self-discipline, and I applied it until my wish and my will became one. The desire that guides me in all I do is the desire to harness the forces of nature to the service of mankind. Throughout the infinite, the forces are in a perfect balance, and hence the energy of a single thought may determine the motion of a universe. The Buddhist expresses it in one way, the Christian in another, but both say the same: we are all one. Of the various branches of electrical investigation, perhaps the most interesting and immediately the most promising is that dealing with alternating currents. As I review the events of my past life, I realize how subtle are the influences that shape our destinies. The progressive development of man is vitally dependent on invention. It is the most important product of his creative brain. I predict that very shortly the old-fashioned incandescent lamp, having a filament heated to brightness by the passage of electric current through it, will entirely disappear. Throughout the infinite, the forces are in a perfect balance, and hence the energy of a single thought may determine the motion of a universe. Our virtues and our failings are inseparable, like force and matter. When they separate, man is no more. It is not in the shallow physical imitation of men that women will assert first their equality and later their superiority, but in the awakening of the intellect of women. All these observations fascinate us and fill us with an intense desire to know more about the nature of these phenomena. When natural inclination develops into a passionate desire, one advances towards his goal in 7-league boots. A century from now, it will no more occur to a normal person to mate with a person eugenically unfit than to marry a habitual criminal. When wireless is fully applied, the earth will be converted into a huge brain, capable of response in every one of its parts. I am trying to awake the energy contained in the air. These are the main sources of energy. What is considered as empty space is just a manifestation of matter that is not awakened. I am even grateful to Einstein and others because through their erroneous theories, they lead mankind away from that dangerous path I followed. We should begin at the very root from which we spring. We should effect a radical reform in the character of the food. But I hope that it will also be demonstrated soon that in my experiments in the West I was not merely beholding a vision, but had caught sight of a great and profound truth. Love, I recognize the emotion for what it is, an irrational self-destructive impulse, which is disguised as joy. All the great religions contain wise prescriptions relating to the conduct of life, which hold good now as they did when they were promulgated. All that was great in the past was ridiculed, condemned, combated, suppressed, only to emerge all the more powerfully, all the more triumphantly from the struggle. And led me to finally recognize that I was but an automaton devoid of free will in thought and action and merely responsible to the forces of the environment. My project was retarded by laws of nature. The world was not prepared for it. It was too far ahead of time, but the same laws will prevail in the end and make it a triumphal success. There is scarcely a subject that cannot be mathematically treated, and the effects calculated or the results determined beforehand from the available theoretical and practical data. The by far greater number of human beings are never aware of what is passing around and within them, and millions fall victims of disease and die prematurely just on this account. Ere many generations pass, our machinery will be driven by a power obtainable at any point of the universe. Of all things, I liked books best. My father had a large library, and whenever I could manage, I tried to satisfy my passion for reading. I counted the steps in my walks and calculated the cubical contents of soup plates, coffee cups, and pieces of food, otherwise my meal was unenjoyable. I am credited with being one of the hardest workers, and perhaps I am, if thought is the equivalent of labor, for I have devoted to it almost all of my waking hours. The carrying out into practice of a crude idea, as is being generally done, is, I hold, nothing but a waste of energy, money, and time. I was merely an automaton endowed with power of movement, responding to the stimuli of the sense organs and thinking and acting accordingly. Soon became convinced I was right and undertook the task with all the fire and boundless confidence of youth. Most certainly, some planets are not inhabited, but others are, and among these there must exist life under all conditions and phases of development. When natural inclination develops into a passionate desire, one advances towards his goal in 7-league boots. I am credited with being one of the hardest workers, and perhaps I am, if thought is the equivalent of labor, for I have devoted to it almost all of my waking hours. Deficient observation is merely a form of ignorance and responsible for the many morbid notions and foolish ideas prevailing. Genius is its own passport and has always been ready to change habitats until the natural one is found. One may feel a sudden wave of sadness and rake his brain for an explanation when he might have noticed that it was caused by a cloud cutting off the rays of the sun. Science is but a perversion of itself unless it has as its ultimate goal the betterment of humanity. The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence. The opinion of the world does not affect me. I have placed as the real values in my life what follows when I am dead. All the great religions contain wise prescriptions relating to the conduct of life, which hold good now as they did when they were promulgated. It is a mere question of time when men will succeed in attaching their machinery to the very wheelwork of nature. My ear barely caught signals coming in regular succession which could not have been produced on Earth. The spread of civilization may be likened to a fire. First, a feeble spark, next a flickering flame, then a mighty blaze, ever increasing in speed and power, Originality thrives in seclusion, free of outside influences beating upon us to cripple the creative mind. Be alone. That is the secret of invention. The progressive development of man is vitally dependent on invention. It is the most important product of his creative brain. So we find that the three possible solutions of the great problem of increasing human energy are answered by the three words: food, peace, work. We crave for new sensations, but soon become indifferent to them. The wonders of yesterday are today common occurrences. Let the future tell the truth and evaluate each one according to his work and accomplishments. The present is theirs. The future, for which I have really worked, is mine. Now sticks and stones'll break you bones. A little talkin' never hurt no one. Let's toke about it. The Secretary of Hygiene or Physical Culture will be far more important in the cabinet of the President of the United States, who holds office in the year 2035, than the Secretary of War. Peace can only come as a natural consequence of universal enlightenment and merging of races, and we are still far from this blissful realization. My mother was an inventor of first order and would, I believe, have achieved great things had she not been so remote from modern life and its multifold opportunities. I'm glad, Tesla-quipped, that I am living in a place in which, though they can roast me in the papers, they cannot burn me at the stake. All those years spent in science were in vain. Please, Mother, pray for me over there if you can. Sing the Moorish lament for the lost soul of your poor ignorant son. I am filled with conviction that the interests of humanity would be best served if the United States remained true to its traditions and kept out of entangling alliances. My wireless transmitter does not use Hertzian waves, which are a grievous myth, but sound waves in the ether. War cannot be avoided until the physical cause for its recurrence is removed, and this, in the last analysis, is the vast extent of the planet on which we live. All of these years of my service towards mankind did not bring me nothing but assaults and humiliations. I had produced a striking phenomenon with my grounded transmitter and was endeavoring to ascertain its true significance in relation to the currents propagated through the earth. The development of man, ultimate purpose, the complete mastery of mind over the material world. It is a simple feat of scientific electrical engineering, only expensive, blind, faint-hearted, doubting world. Perhaps I failed, but I did my best. These masters of mine may do the rest. Every effort under compulsion demands a sacrifice of life energy. I never paid such a price. On the contrary, I have thrived on my thoughts. The scientists of today think deeply instead of clearly. One must be sane to think clearly, but one can think deeply and be quite insane. Let the future tell the truth and evaluate each one according to his work and accomplishments. The present is theirs. The future, for which I have really worked, is mine. Today's scientists have substituted mathematics for experiments, and they wander off through equation after equation and eventually build a structure which has no relation to reality. If you only knew the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, then you would have the key to the universe. In a crystal we have clear evidence of the existence of a formative life principle, and though we cannot understand the life of a crystal, it is nonetheless a living being. One of the most gratifying results of intellectual evolution is the continuous opening up of new and greater prospects. We should begin at the very root from which we spring. We should effect a radical reform in the character of the food. My belief is firm in a law of compensation. The true rewards are ever in proportion to the labor and sacrifices made. To stop war by the perfection of engines of destruction alone might consume centuries and centuries. Other means must be employed to hasten the end. It is not in the shallow physical imitation of men that women will assert first their equality and later their superiority, but in the awakening of the intellect of women. Money does not represent such a value as men have placed upon it. All my money has been invested into experiments with which I have made new discoveries, enabling mankind to have a little easier life. The gift of mental power comes from God, divine being, and if we concentrate our minds on that truth, we become in tune with this great power. My mother had taught me to seek all truth in the Bible. The mind is sharper and keener in seclusion and uninterrupted solitude. Originality thrives in seclusion free of outside influences beating upon us to cripple the creative mind. Be alone, that is the secret of invention. Be alone, that is when ideas are born. Within a few years, a simple and inexpensive device, readily carried about, will enable one to receive on land or see the principal news, to hear a speech, a lecture, a song or play of a musical instrument, conveyed from any other region of the globe. The motors I built there were exactly as I imagined them. I made no attempt to improve the design, but merely reproduced the pictures as they appeared to my vision, and the operation was always as I expected. With a different form of wireless instrument devised by me some years ago, it was found practicable to locate a body of metallic ore below the ground, and it seems that a submarine could be similarly detected. I predict that very shortly the old-fashioned incandescent lamp, having a filament heated to brightness by the passage of electric current through it, will entirely disappear. The idea of atomic energy is illusionary, but it has taken so powerful a hold on the minds that although I have preached against it for 25 years, there are still some who believe it to be realizable. Alternate currents, especially of high frequencies, pass with astonishing freedom through even slightly rarefied gases. The upper strata of the air are rarefied. To reach a number of miles out into space requires the overcoming of difficulties of a merely mechanical nature. My brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I have not penetrated into the secrets of this core, but I know that it exists. I do not think there is any thrill that can go through the human heart like that felt by the inventor as he sees some creation of the brain unfolding to success. Such emotions make a man forget food, sleep, friends, love, everything. To conquer by sheer force is becoming harder and harder every day. Defensive is getting continuously the advantage of offensive as we progress in the satanic science of destruction. It has cost me years of thought to arrive at certain results, by many believed to be unattainable, for which there are now numerous claimants, and the number of these is rapidly increasing, like that of the colonels in the South after the war. Today's scientists have substituted mathematics for experiments, and they wander off through equation after equation and eventually build a structure which has no relation to reality. Electrical science has revealed to us the true nature of light, has provided us with innumerable appliances and instruments of precision, and has thereby vastly added to the exactness of our knowledge. We wind a simple ring of iron with coils. We establish the connections to the generator, and with wonder and delight we note the effects of strange forces which we bring into play, which allow us to transform, to transmit and direct energy at will. Man, like the universe, is a machine. Nothing enters our minds or determines our actions which is not directly or indirectly a response to stimuli beating upon our sense organs from without. To conquer by sheer force is becoming harder and harder every day. Defensive is getting continuously the advantage of offensive as we progress in the satanic science of destruction. The motors I built there were exactly as I imagined them. I made no attempt to improve the design, but merely reproduced the pictures as they appeared to my vision, and the operation was always as I expected. When wireless is fully applied, the Earth will be converted into a huge brain, capable of response in every one of its parts. I cannot exaggerate the effect of this marvelous sight on my childish imagination. Day after day I asked myself, what is electricity, and found no answer. 80 years have gone by since, and I still ask the same question, unable to answer it. I am unwilling to accord to some small-minded and jealous individuals the satisfaction of having thwarted my efforts. These men are to me nothing more than microbes of a nasty disease. All repeated acts or operations I performed had to be divisible by 3, and if I missed, I felt impelled to do it all over again, even if it took hours. There is no subject more captivating, more worthy of study than nature. To understand this great mechanism, to discover the forces which are active and the laws which govern them, is the highest aim of the intellect of man. Which quote did you like the most? Share your opinion in the comments. Don't miss out on a chance to see the next video. Subscribe.